So since we've set up TSM, Aidan, I think a lot of the advice that we put out there, definitely some of it has been a bit more controversial and definitely against the grain towards those traditional ways of thinking. I mean, when we set up TSM, the whole point was to really share the information that we know really does the job, what's most effective, how can we genuinely help people the best as possible. And we've always known that sometimes there's going to be some information which is just a little bit more controversial than may say something else. And I think our biggest one to date is probably on the topics of websites. Websites specifically, we go around a lot. Like we lecture that Magic Circle do in our lecture. You don't need a website, and here is why. In our course Momentum, like we mentioned in that, you don't need a website in that. Across the podcasts and social medias, we've been saying you don't need a website as well. Like we've had this stance for a long time, and I thought it was good to maybe bring this onto the podcast to deconstruct kind of our philosophies behind that so that people really understand it, because I know there's plenty of people out there saying, yeah, but not having a website would just look unprofessional. Not having a website would lead to less leads and less gigs and less money. So I thought this is why it'll be a really cool episode to dig into today.
I think there's a few important points actually here, and a few little mindsets to tweak. And first up, we want to admit two things. First up, we have websites. So again, take from that what you will. We have websites. But the other thing is that we're not using them as a predominant absolute, they're amazing. Because truth is, they're probably not for most people. Now, if you want to go ahead and look at websites as a lead gen tool, we know people out there that are doing really, really well with it. There are countless entertainers that we know that do really well with websites and SEO and paid ads to their website, and that's great. But there's a lot of fundamental principles and like foundational principles that we need to make sure that we've got in our entertainment businesses so that we can run at any time, even if the website goes down. Because that's a big thing. If your entire business is structured on your website and your website goes down for some reason, or there's a bug or a glitch or something, you can be missing out on a significant amount of leads over the long haul. So, I think it's probably the easiest way to go about this is to look at some of the reasons that people want a website first of all, and then flip that to I think there's 5 major problems that people have with websites in and of itself, but the first want from a website, the first thing that most people go to a website to do is that they think it is that quick magic bullet for leads. People think that getting a website, putting their website together and actually putting it out to the world means, yay, I'm going to get loads and loads of bookings. And I think everybody who has a website is very, very open and can openly admit, yeah, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah. And I think the second one on that is people just want to get loads of gigs, and they think that they get loads of gigs just by being online. A very similar thing, but at the end of the day, does that really happen? And I think a lot of you right now can think, hey, what's happening with my website? Am I getting loads of leads? And for some people, the answer is yes, if they have built up a website that works and looked into all of the stuff and they've got it optimized. But I know for a lot of entertainers out there, we haven't put in those million hours of work. So a lot of the times you don't get a lot of gigs just, and I emphasize the just part of this, just by being online.
The third big one that people have from a website is that they want to stand out. They want to actually have a website that'll help them stand out and get more bookings. And as Ashley's hinted just then, again, people want all of that to look less, or to look more professional, less amateurish, actually stand out, be good, get some gigs. The truth is, none of that's really the case with a typical website. And there's 5 major problems. So we're going to go through those now. And Ashley's hinted at the first one, is that websites quite simply are not a quick fix for getting leads. There's many, many reasons behind that, but having a really good website it's hard to do. It requires focus. It requires a whole new realm of knowledge to actually know what you want people to do as they're navigating your site. And I think this comes to we had a really great conversation over on my Facebook the other week with a chap named Steve Rowe. You may know him, absolutely incredible magician, phenomenal thinker. But we had a conversation about this subject of like why you don't need a website. And he brought a really good point to light. And it's like, if your website's not getting consistent leads, it's not that you don't need a website. It's that you just need a website that works. And he's totally right. If you really want to go and get some leads through your website, yeah, you got to go ahead and get a website that actually works. But the truth is that it's not a quick fix. Most people think that putting a website together is a quick fix, and it's not. It's really time consuming. Even with the easy drag and drop page builders, like you always see it in those ads. They're like, come and join us on Squarespace, because that's like, I'm swear that Squarespace is sponsored of every YouTuber ever. It's ridiculous. But they promise it's nice, a quick, easy fix to build your website, and it's not. It's still hard. It's still long and complicated. And that's before you even put any words on the page. That's just putting some content, shaping your website. It can be quite time consuming.
I think even if you think spending 2, 5, 10 hours, whatever, building your website is quick, and you think, that's not time consuming for me, I can do that, you're forgetting that to make a website work, you've got to do all the behind the scenes stuff to make it work. It's not enough just putting it online. It's not going to happen. I think this links onto another problem line. Websites are really time consuming with little to no reward from them. The amount of people that get into the industry, and I paint this from my perspective, for example. When I got in, I looked around what everyone else was doing, and I thought, cool, everyone's on social media and websites. If I want to be a pro magician, I better get my website and social media sorted. I know there's plenty of you out there that think the same, because I speak to you guys. And when I was thinking that, I built up my website, and then it was crap, so I'd done it again, then I'd done it again, and I kept tweaking it every year and so often, and it did take a long time. And every time I'd done something new in my magic, I was updating the about section, uploading the new photos, uploading this, uploading that, and it did take so much of my time, and I wasn't getting much from it. And a big kind of problem is it takes an awfully long time to build a website that works properly, looking behind the scenes on how to actually rank higher on Google, how to actually make the flow of the page work, all the buttons, the backlinks, the SEO, what you write, what you type, the word searches, which are kind of come up, all your keywords and tags, the photos, and optimizing this. And is your website loading too fast? Is it loading too slow? Is there things that are lagging out? Is there alignment issues? And all of this is taken into consideration. And this is a lot of research, to get up to a point where you've got a good website which is ticking over, which is bringing in leads. There's a lot of research that goes into stuff that probably a lot of you might not have heard about before. And if you don't look into that stuff and you just do what I done for many years, building up a website and adjusting things and thinking, I've done this cool stage show, I'll update that, that'll impress people, that'll bring in more leads. You're just putting in hours and hours and hours of time, and no one's going to see it. You're not going to get the leads, and you're not going to get the results from it.
No, it's literally that's the case. I think the second and element of the problem number two, websites being time consuming with little to no reward, that I want to bring up here is the little to no reward bit. Because in our entertainment business, there's two types of activities, and there's only two. There's money making activities in terms of immediate money making activities, and then there's no money making activities, stuff that isn't going to immediately actually make you some money. And here's the thing, building a website, does you building that website directly equal money in your bank account? No. It could at a later date, but that's an example of a delayed money making activity. It's something that's not immediately going to work for you right now. Whereas again, this is just us talking here from our experience and our preferences. We're much more a fan of spending, say, that 10 hours that you would spend building a website, doing something that is more immediately money-making, like talking to the people that you know, connecting with the right people, actually going out and being proactive in our entertainment business. And this is something that we talk about a lot. Actually taking ownership of your entertainment business. You can't rely on other things. You can't rely on your website to get your leads, because if the website glitches out or there's a problem with your website or your website goes down for whatever reason, if that's your sole source of leads, you're screwed. You've got nothing to fall back on. You can't, like, the only other option logistically is to build another website whilst that one's down. And it's like, what if in some crazy world the internet fails? Like, it might. You never know.
And it's not just us saying this. Like, our friends at Email Marketing Heroes, Kennedy and Rob Temple, they say the same things, like, don't rely on social media. What happens if Facebook one day, oh my gosh, they've done something illegal, immediately shut down? Like, whoa, big problem. You've got to take ownership. And, like, I know it might seem crazy to think about, but in the world we live in, anything is possible. And if you don't take ownership, you're just setting yourself up for delayed problems, at least in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of business owners. And I think the third problem as well, now this is a really interesting one, Aidan, because if you do have a website set up, and say, for example, someone builds it and they listen to this and say, you know what, lads, I get where you're coming from, and I think you've highlighted to me that I'm going to put in the extra work to actually make a website that works and actually brings in leads. The type of leads you get in, what are they like?
Well, this is the thing. No two leads are equal. No two leads are equal. And this is a really mind-warping concept for a lot of entertainers that we speak to. Like, you might think a lead's a lead. Like, one wedding client is exactly the same as another wedding client, especially if they want the same thing. Everything about them is the same. Well, the truth is, they're not. You see, I don't know whether you're familiar with this, so I'm going to try and do an explanation now, but there's different types of traffic. And traffic is quite simply the term used for, like, the amount of people seeing, going to your website and moving around. Imagine literal traffic. That's lots of people in a certain space. That's basically what we're doing, except in an online world. And there's there's kind of three real types of traffic. You've got cold traffic, which is people that just are unfamiliar with you. They don't really know anything about you. You don't really know anything about them. They're just cold. They're just there. They just so happen to have come through a certain place and they're in this position at this specific time. For example, people that are just hitting your website for the first time and have never heard of you before. Maybe you popped up on Google when they did a search and they clicked your website. That's an example of somebody who is cold traffic. Now, warm traffic is the second step here, and that's kind of people that do already know a little bit about you. They've been in your world for maybe a little while, or at least they're vaguely familiar. Perhaps if you are taking a paid ads route, for example, this is like retargeting. So you can tell that somebody's clicked on your website, had a look around your website. You can retarget them with ads to come back to your website as a new thing. But that's an example of warm because they've already been in your world. They've already seen a bit about what it is that you're doing. And then the third and final is hot leads. And these are people that are ready to book you. They are the best possible lead for you at any given moment. And the problem with websites is that traditionally, you're going to be focusing on the cold leads that are coming in. And it's much harder to convert those. And I think even at the Magic Circle, I'm going to share the example that we gave then. For the people, but imagine that you're sat in the Magic Circle Theatre. You were in that lecture, the lecture that we gave. Imagine that when you leave after our lecture, a homeless person came up to you and asked you for a couple of quid. Would you give them some change? Would you give them that couple of quid? And for some people in the audience, yeah, people thought that. Perhaps even you might think that. Yeah, if I had some change on me, sure, why not? But here's the thing. Let's flip it around. Let's imagine exact same situation. You're sat in the theatre at the Magic Circle, watching our lecture, and on the way out of our lecture, on your way home, that same homeless man comes up to you, and instead of asking you for some change or a couple of quid, asks you for £500. Are you going to give them the change? Are you going to give them that £500 in this situation? But 90% of people, I would probably argue even 99% of people, maybe even 100% of people would say no at that point. Because it's cold. It's a really great example of cold traffic. You don't know this person. This person doesn't know you. There is no relationship there. And as a result, there is no reason for you to give over your cash. And that's the exact same on your website, except you're the magician or potential magician for their event, not a homeless person. Like, that's the dialogue.
And I think this all comes down to, if you take it from this, and it's a great weird analogy. You know me, I love weird there. I think if you take it from this, like, we're talking about this, and ultimately it's lead gen. We're focusing on lead gen. The reason why people maybe want to get a website is lead gen. And if we're using a website to get leads, if we're getting colder leads, for example, through that, we're going to need to spend more time warming them up. Like, we know sales is a people's game. It's all about rapport building and opportunity hunting and problem solving. That's what it's about. And when the type of traffic, when the type of leads you're getting through whatever source of lead gen, in this example, the website category, you have to put in way more time to warm that person up. You can't just go to them, here's what I do, book me, because chances are they might not, and they'll shop around. They've got no loyalty to you. They've got no reason to book you. You've got to spend way more time building relationships and bringing them through and changing them from warm and then changing them to hot to go through the process. You've got to warm. It's like warming up a cold turkey. You got served a frozen turkey. You're looking for turkey, but you got to warm that bad boy up. Adrian, I can do weird analogies as well.
That's not an analogy we've ever had before, but I think it's going to be one that sticks.
I like it. I'm going to get that tattooed on my neck. You are a cold turkey. But this is the point. You've got to put in more work, whereas like other strategies, people come to you and they're already warm. They're already hot.
Yeah, I think this is one of the reasons that, just to give people an insight, it's one of the reasons that, for example, our Momentum program, we don't focus on websites or anything like that, because we focus instead on finding the warm and the hot leads and using those and leveraging those, because it's an easier thing to sell. People are either directly coming to you, having known you, seen you before, been in your world, and want something from you specifically, or like imagine like a really good friend of the family, or just a really good friend of yours says, oh, a friend of mine is getting married. Do you want me to put you in touch? Like, that's a perfect example, because they're a raving fan of you. They know somebody that they really trust. The two people, you and the potential client, they're happy to put that connection and join the dots there as an example of really warm, hot traffic.
I don't know why I went for the cold turkey example. I've just thought of a better example. I would have been better off putting it in magician's terms, Aidan, and just saying, yeah, an example of cold traffic. How many of you right now have had the inquiry, 28th of February, are you available? How much do you charge? That would have been literally just a better example. But
I had one of those this week. It's ridiculous.
I just went, cold turkey. Oh, save me.
But this is the point here. We're talking about the different types of traffic and the different levels of relationships, because that's all this is, right? This is all about the relationships that you actually have with people. Even if you want to go ahead and get your website up and running and get a really good website strategy with paid ads behind it, with retargeting to warm people up and stuff, sure, we're still, in the marketing terms, warming people up by keeping them in our world, letting them like our Facebook page or join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram or join our email list or whatever the case may be. Sure, we're technically still warming them up. But if they're new, they're brand new to you, they've never met you before and just found you online, you're still 10 pegs behind in the actual real relationship that you've got with these people relative to the people that you already know in the circle that you've already got, which is really important. Like, yes, you can bring in that cold traffic, warm them up and get them ready for a lead, but sometimes, just sometimes, it's a little bit easier to realise that's hard. Let's do the easier thing of find the people that are ready and interested and willing to actually collaborate, connect with, work with, book us ultimately. That's kind of important there. But the fourth major problem that people have when it comes down to websites is it's just really easy to blend in. Like, people think that having a website will help them stand out, and that's one of the reasons we all want a website. We want a website because it'll help us stand out and look good. And the truth is, we just blend in and literally look like everyone else. Now, we'll ignore the fact, for this conversation, that we're typically encouraged to stalk other magicians and other mentalists' websites and see what they're putting on there so you know what to put on yours. Let's ignore that fact when it comes down to this and specifically look at some words. Because actually there's a couple of words that pretty much every entertainer uses. What are they?
Yeah. Well, the first one is icebreaker, if you've got that on there. Noddy. Everyone's got that. And if you're describing your services and what you offer as, magical, memorable, and unforgettable. Like we've had a good stalk. Like when we was putting together our lecture for the Magic Circle, we had a stalk at everyone's websites, and pretty much everyone had that. And like 99% of people had that wording to describe what they do. Yes, this will be the most magical, unforgettable, and memorable day of your life. Okay, Dave down the road said that as well.
Literally. If we all blend in and we've all got the same website copy, we've got the same stuff, we're saying the same thing. Sure, we might say it in slightly different words. You might not use the perfect icebreaker on your website, but if you're still talking about breaking the ice kind of thing, you're still blending in with what everyone else does. And it's the same when it comes down to out of this context whatsoever, when you look at the actually what it is that we're offering. So they've inquired with one entertainer. The entertainer was quoted however much, £250 for a couple of hours. And then they come to you. They've got a figure in mind. And if your website looks even remotely similar, not just aesthetically here, we're getting into the specific copy and stuff. If your website doesn't set you apart from other entertainers in your local area, your clients are coming to you with a mindset of fees. And as a result, people are going to see you as the same as other people. It's going to be really harder to, I don't want to say convince people to book you for a higher cost, because that's never the game. It's never about convincing people. But it's just going to be harder to close more sales if people are seeing that you're the same and your fees are different, or what you offer is completely different. And that's the reason that we focus on actually making sure that all of our clients' offers are completely different from their local area. We're not charging by hour. We're not pricing we're not packaging up as our 3 big packages. We're not doing it as a show, close up, and then close up and a show, because every entertainer does that. We're not doing that with our clients. And it's working an absolute treat.
And I think when you start to look similar and when you start to offer similar things as well, like you said, it really does open up that competition. And I think that's where, even if people do have leads coming in, say they're successful and they've got solid leads coming through their website, but it's these other things that they're lacking on now, they just might not be able to convert those leads. And as a byproduct, they're not getting the gigs and not making the money that they want from their entertainment career, even though they're actually getting leads coming in. So it can be a big problem blending in online. And it does take a lot of time to get your copy right and to think originally and display yourself online. Wow, that can mean many things. Display yourself online in 2022. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on the podcast. Oh god, frozen turkey and display yourself. Well, I mean, you'd stand out. You'd stand out.
Yep, you definitely would. Definitely would. I can't remember what my point was. You threw my point actually out of the window there. So we'll move to problem number 5. It's the 5th and final major problem that a lot of people have with websites, is that if your website isn't great, like we're talking, it works, it loads properly, it's high performing online, like on Google and search engines and that kind of stuff. The navigation on it is great. It's really easy for clients to read and load and all of that kind of stuff. If your website is not great, they typically tend to steer clients away from you. And there's a few elements to that. I mean, first of all, if your website takes too long to load, like clients would just not wait. In fact, there was a study done it wasn't even recently. It's gone down recently, but there was a study done a couple of years ago about how long the average wait time for a page loading on a website was for people. And they did this full study, and the average wait time, the amount of time that people would sit and wait for a page to load online, was 2 seconds. And that's the average, which means some people will wait a little bit longer, and an awful lot of people will wait a lot less. If it's not there instantly, they're going to move on, because we live in a world full of distraction. So that's just one element of, if your website isn't great, if it doesn't load quick enough, your clients can quite easily walk away.
I think if you're relying on your website as a source of getting leads, you've got to make it a good source of getting leads, and rightly so. If there is a problem, you've not designed it right, it just looks a bit naff, or maybe, like we've mentioned earlier, like a bit samey to other people. Is it really going to work? No. People are either going to hop to another magician down the road, compare you to other people, and then you've got a race to the lowest price or whatever. Or like you say, it's going to put people off. We've seen loads of websites out there, and you can have a Google yourself. If you want to have a Google, you'll be able to see what we mean by like bad websites. And you'll be able to see what we mean by good websites. You can clearly see the difference online. But the thing is, it goes back to what we said at the beginning. If you want to build up a website which actually looks good, and like you want to go down the website route of like making it look good and designing it, and you think, okay, that's a problem, don't worry, I can get around that. I can make it look great. I can make it look fancy. I can make it convert my clients. It's going to cost two things. You're going to spend a lot of time designing this, especially if you're not a designer, or you're going to have to pay someone to do it. And that can be a lot of money if you pay a professional to do this.
Well, let's just not escape that point one. It's like most people are not web designers or graphic designers, yet they do their graphic design and their web design. There's a clear gap there. There's a clear discrepancy, and it really resembles it online, which is why it's like we're huge fans of and push out there for people that really want a good website. Get a website design. Get somebody who's actually good at this stuff to do it. Like as we said, we know our websites aren't great, but it's not a high leverage opportunity for us right now. It's not a high leverage task. It's not one of those immediate money making activities for us to go ahead and get somebody to fix our websites, because right now things around that are going quite well. Now, the other point on this is that we kind of hinted at it earlier in terms of the like blending in and looking like everybody else. But again, here's the other thing: if your website looks a bit mediocre, or not, or just let's say not mediocre, let's say you've got an above average website. But if it's not great, like a truly great website, your clients just check your website before they book you, because clients can do that and often do that. And a client will go ahead and browse on your social media, your Facebook, or browse online and stuff before they actually say yes to booking you, or before they hop on a discovery call, for example. If they see this website that's a bit mediocre, or a social media platform that's a bit bland, a bit nothing, it's like empty in that sense, well, the clients, if they decide to go ahead and hop on this discovery call, they're coming in with preconceptions about your fee. And if you've got an average website or a below average website, people are going to naturally be skeptical over fees. And it means that I'm not saying that you can't charge higher in those situations. I'm just saying it's going to be it might become a tougher sale if your website looks absolutely god awful and you're charging a lot.
Exactly, that is very similar stuff to what we spoke about in a previous episode on pricing tickets. Like, people build up those preconceived ideas before they come to you. Anyone's interested in that 5 psychological hacks to selling more tickets at your stage show, something like that, you'll find it. It's only a few episodes ago. But I think this is the thing here. Like, these are our views, and I think the question comes down to not, the website's important, the website's important, the website's not important, the website's not important. There's just a bunch of different ways of getting leads. A website is one of them. Ads is another one. Like, doing what we do by building relationships and connecting with people in our circle and connecting with only the hot and warm leads so it's easy is another one. And there's a million other ones. Like, I think for you, it's entirely down to you what you do. And I think this is it. We're not going out there, Aidan, and saying to people, you don't need a website for the rest of your life. Yeah, throw that in the bin. If you have a website, you're going to hell. It sucks. It doesn't work. I don't think we're saying that. I think what we're actually saying, and the core message behind it, is if you want to put a website out there and you want to do it, and you want that to generate leads, if you really want that to generate leads, make it so it works, so it generates leads. Don't just put it up there and it not work. But at the same time, if you only got you don't want to invest hours and hours and hours and hours and hours into your day getting this to look right, maybe there's other things that you can do right now. Maybe there's more efficient ways of booking gigs. Maybe there's better ways so that you don't just rely on the internet. You actually take ownership over your business so that you have full control.
And I think it's really important here to just remind you again of a couple of the key principles. If you if you do want to go ahead and please don't wait for your website to be looking absolutely fantastic in order to go ahead and start booking gigs, because it's just not worth it. Because at the end of the day, if your website is subpar and your clients look at it and think you're subpar, because that's how they think you're subpar, they're not going to be as hugely excited. It's easier to convince somebody and to prove to somebody that you are a great entertainer with less around. Like, it's easier to tell people that you're great if you just don't have a website. Because they have to go on what either they've been recommended, or your online social media presence, or just their interaction with you and you alone. The less you give them, the better your point can come across. And we're finding that. In fact, another out of context point, we send, and it's great because there's so many of these examples, but we send our clients our 3 entertainment packages. We send them on literally a Google Docs, unbranded, unfancied. It's literally a blank Google Docs, writing out the packages, explaining everything about it, the transformations, all that kind of stuff. We just send them the link to that. It's simple, it's ugly, and we out and out say this is really ugly. But it proves the point. There's less resistance there because people know exactly where they're going, exactly what they want. But I'm sure we could cover that at another point.
Oh boy, there's some psychology behind that. And I just want to ditto what you said. We are pretty much in the only trade, the only industry when we can show people and tell people and explain to people like, hey, we're good, without having to have a website or a YouTube series or anything like that. If you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're a house builder, if you're a maths teacher, it's really flipping hard to tell people, hey, I'm good. You can't exactly bust out your welding gear and be like, yeah, look at this, when you're down the pub. We are in the only trade where we can just be like, you want to see a trick? And people are like, yeah, man, go for it. Wow, you're amazing, you're great. Can I book you? Like, this is the easiest profession to be in, to literally show to someone, you are worthwhile, you are good, and you're worth the money that you charge. Easy.
Exactly that. And again, what I would want to draw people's attention to is that you've got to play to your strengths. If after listening to this, you hear all of this and think, yeah, I'm not sure a website is my highest leverage task right now. I'm not sure my website is my top of the range focus right now. First up, we'd love to help you. Again, if you want to get to $2,000 over the next 6 weeks, we'd love to help you inside Momentum. Just head over to thesuccessfulmentalist.com/momentum. But if you decide that you do want to give your website a go, please don't half-ass it. Commit to it. There's a reason that in our vision stack is basically 5 stages to a thriving and hustle-free entertainment career. There's a really important section there. I believe it's the 3rd or 4th section, actually. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but either the 3rd or 4th section, we talk about choosing your strategy, and it's not the first thing that you should look at. Again, the vision stack is a completely different training elsewhere, but it's a completely different strategy. And at the point when we're talking about knowing your strategy and choosing your strategy, you need to play to your strengths. And this is the important thing. If you're not good at, say, writing, chances of you having a really high, and doing it yourself, doing a really highly converting web page with all the copy and stuff, and you're not very good at writing, you're not playing to your strengths. You're forcing yourself to go through a weakness. If you're much better on video, why not chuck a video up on YouTube, chuck a video up on your Facebook page, and then send people to that video instead of your website? Like, you get the point here. You can play to your strengths, however that might be. For a lot of entertainers, they thrive on doing the magic. In which case, can you find a way to do the magic instead? This is not a point against websites. This is not a point for websites. This is a point for an intentional decision over what your strengths are and what you actually want to do, so that you can go ahead and do it and commit to that to your fullest potential. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way anything's going to work, right?
Exactly that. So I hope this makes sense. I hope there's some value in there. I hope you guys have learned, and I hope it's opened your eyes to realize there's a huge potential of ways of generating gigs. You don't just need to rely on a web page. And if you do want to rely on it, as we've said, Make it a good one. But with that said, my name's been Ashley Green. That over there is Aidan O'Sullivan. If you're listening in your podcast, it's a guy in your ear that doesn't sound like me. And we will see you guys very, very soon.